Just after 1 this afternoon, a couple at Scioto Grove Park in Grove City called 911 after discovering the woman's body near the front of the park. Investigators say she likely died of a single gunshot wound. They described her as a white woman in her 20s with blondish brown hair. Grove City Police and BCI combed the rest of the park. You can see here with Grove City's K-9. An autopsy, guys, is pending. Police haven't released a motive or any suspects at this point.
A body found in Scioto Grove Metro Parks has been identified as missing Ohio State University student Reagan Tokes. Tokes was last seen Wednesday evening just before 10 p.m. when she left work at the Bodega Cafe. Her body was discovered more than 12 hours later. Investigators say the 21-year-old OSU student was shot, but detectives say they didn't find any shell casings near her body. That would indicate that she was killed somewhere else and that the body was left near the park entrance.
1 week ago, the body of Reagan Tokes was discovered in a Grove City park. Through 911 calls, we're learning the role technology played in tracking her activity on campus and how she was reported missing to begin with. Wednesday, February 8th.
So we had a employee leave work last night, and she has not been home. Her phone is off. Nobody can find her.
Reagan Tokes' co-workers at Bodega in the Short North report her missing to a 911 operator, describing what she was wearing as she left work via security camera.
Looks like she's wearing a dark gray shirt and blue jeans.
Telling the 911 operator that Tokes didn't show up for work the next day.
She didn't report today?
Correct. Her mom's been calling, looking for her.
On OSU campus where Tokes lived and attended school, the search for her intensifies.
She had no activity on her Buck ID, saying that she's been swiping in and out on campus for the last 2 days. And then she has not attended her class that was to start at 3:55 today.
Then Thursday morning, Tokes' unclothed body is discovered at Scioto Grove Metro Park, 10 miles from Bodega.
A wanted killer is back behind bars. Today, Grove City police arrested the man who they believe murdered Ohio State University senior Reagan Tokes.
From the moment Grove City police discovered the body of 21-year-old Reagan Tokes just yards from the front entrance of the Metro Park, they worked through the night. And tonight, they announced they have an arrest. Brian Golsby is behind bars. Golsby had only been released from prison last fall after serving time for robbing and attempting to rape a woman in Grove City. Now, Police Chief Jeffrey Pearson says his heart aches for the family of Reagan Tokes. He's also thanking the public for leads.
We received numerous tips that we're able to follow up on.
DNA evidence proved to be crucial. Samples of DNA were pulled from Reagan's car.
We recovered several pieces of evidence inside the car that could be tested for DNA.
As BCI compared that DNA to their sex offender registry, they found a match.
His name is Brian Lee Golsby.
Detectives say Golsby has no connection to Reagan. Officers say as Reagan left her job Wednesday night, she likely crossed paths with Golsby before making it to her car. Golsby is now charged with kidnapping Reagan at gunpoint, robbing her, then killing her. Police say he has admitted to parts of the night.
He gave us details of the events of the night that closely match what we were finding.
Police say they are not ruling out other recent violent crimes that Golsby could be tied to, including 3 attacks in German Villiage.
Could be, but again, we're working with our Columbus partners, so I can't answer that for sure right now.
This investigation continues, and one item Grove City police are waiting to get their hands on: video from ATMs in which Reagan Tokes' card was used that night.
A life filled with promise.
Reagan Delaney Tokes to receive the degree Bachelor of Arts.
That never got to flourish. 21-year-old Reagan Tokes' family accepted a posthumous degree in her honor from the Ohio State University. A lovely, sweet, innocent girl, kidnapped, robbed, raped, and murdered. The suspect, 29-year-old Brian Golsby, a man who was in trouble long before being arrested for the crimes against Reagan Tokes. 2010, court records show Brian Golsby robbed Sheila Merwin and held her against her will outside a Grove City apartment. She tells 10 Investigates she remembers it like it was yesterday.
Sheila says she stopped at her mailbox like she always does and got out of her car. Her car was here. She's walking to the mailbox. Golsby comes up on a bicycle, puts his hands around her throat and says, "Give me your money."
I begged him not to take my purse, which was, I just didn't want to get, there's so much in there. and he let me keep it, and he just had me get the money out. I gave him $84.
2 weeks later, court records show Golsby held a knife to a young mother. He forced her to drive to an ATM with her 2-year-old in the car. Once there, he forced her to pull out cash and perform oral sex.
She did not want to testify, which I totally understand. And that's why he got the short sentence and the plea deal.
Because of that, the cases were combined. Golsby reached a plea deal on those attacks and spent nearly 6 years in prison for robbery and attempted rape. And as a Tier 3 sex offender, he had to register with the state for the rest of his life. It was just the latest in a crime career that started at age 14. As a juvenile, Golsby racked up a list of offenses we've obtained through court records: criminal damaging, receiving stolen property, theft, criminal trespass, and even running away from foster care. His prison time was riddled with troublemaking in 5 penitentiaries. That's right, he got shuffled to 5 different prisons because he was constantly getting in trouble. 52 infractions in all. Fighting, possession of contraband, stealing from the commissary, refusal to obey orders, creating disturbance. Despite that, November 2016, he was released on post-release control with conditions. 10 Investigates obtained this email suggesting Golsby be placed on GPS monitoring as a special condition because he was going to be released homeless. A device was strapped to his ankle, but prosecutor Ron O'Brien confirmed to 10 Investigates tracking did not happen. On the evening of February 8, 2017, the night of Reagan Tokes' rape and murder, O'Brien says Brian Golsby was trolling streets in the Short North. 7:40 p.m., we see Golsby riding a Coda bus just steps away from Bodega, a restaurant and bar on North High Street.
Just crisscrossed the neighborhood down to around 5th and High, down Summit, down some of the side streets east of High.
9:45 p.m., Golsby is outside Bodega, right as Reagan Tokes is getting off work. Court records suggest that while he was on the prowl that night, he came across Reagan Tokes. That's when O'Brien says Golsby abducted her as she tried to walk to her car at East 3rd Avenue and Mount Pleasant. 10:03 p.m. Prosecutors say Golsby forced her to withdraw $60 from this Chase Bank ATM on South High Street. Just before midnight, Golsby is accused of shooting Reagan Tokes to death and dumping her body at Scioto Grove Metro Park. 2 days later, Reagan's 1999 Acura was found in the 700 block of Oakwood Avenue. Golsby's DNA was retrieved from a cigarette butt found in the car. He was arrested the next day at a house on Forest Street. Because of his arrest, Golsby's ankle monitor is finally checked, and the data recovered reveals his location at the scene of many more alleged crimes. January 24th, a knife-point robbery of a woman for $3 on Brook Street. January 27th, another woman robbed for a couple of gift cards on South 18th Street. February 1st, a man robbed for $20 on East Broad Street. The next day, a man forced at gunpoint to drive to an ATM and withdraw $500. February 6th, a woman pistol whipped and robbed of $38 on Mohawk Street. The next day, the day before Reagan's murder, a woman robbed of her purse and bag on Newberry and Carpenter Street.
Grove City Police now confirm the GPS device shows Golsby was in Scioto Grove Metro Park the night Tokes was murdered, her body dumped in that park.
Away from the spotlight, Lisa and Toby Tokes have been hard at work for months to do everything in their power to help prevent other families from enduring tragedies similar to theirs. But publicly, we have not heard from Reagan's parents until today.
Lisa and Toby Tokes have come to accept that the pain they've endured following their daughter's murder will last a lifetime.
It's just, devastating as parents. You never get over it. It never goes away for us or any other member of our family. It's always there. It's always with you.
Lisa spoke publicly today for the first time since her oldest daughter was abducted and murdered in February. It was an emotional day for the family as the Reagan Tokes Act was introduced.
What was taken away from us, something positive had to come from it. And God finds ways to do good in all things, even evil.
There was no choice except we had to act immediately.
Reagan was just 21 years old, a senior psychology major at Ohio State, and her parents' efforts to prevent others from her same fate is an apparent trait that runs in the family.
She just cared about everyone. It didn't matter who you were, where you came from, what you were like. She was always there for everyone.
She would want us doing this at this point. She would want us trying to make something positive from this terrible tragedy. She just had such a kind, loving spirit.
It is because of this love that we have for our daughter we stand before you.
Lisa Tokes said supporting legislative change in the wake of her daughter's violent death is the right thing to do. Brian Golsby, a repeat offender, had been released from prison last November despite his violent history and dozens of prison infractions while behind bars.
They can identify people who are likely to reoffend. Their hands are tied. They can't do anything about some of these people.
Golsby is also charged with committing a half-dozen armed robberies in the German Villiage area in the weeks leading up to the murder of Reagan Tokes. Golsby was required to wear a GPS ankle monitor, but lawmakers say his movements were not restricted. And because of his violent past, private re-entry programs rejected him. The Reagan Tokes Act would seek to keep unreformed violent offenders in prison longer and then require more intense electronic monitoring upon their release.
It was preventable, and if the correct parameters would have been in place and acted upon in a timely manner, we might not be standing before you today advocating for change.
In less than a month, Brian Golsby will stand trial for killing Reagan Tokes while he was on parole for attempted rape and robbery. It's a story we've been following for nearly a year. NBC4's Dan Perlman was in court today as the judge allowed a key piece of testimony to be used during the upcoming trial.
I've personally worn every unit or every type of device that we've ever built. I test the device in all kinds of ways. I'm very confident that when I say that someone is within a certain circle of accuracy through testing myself, that person or myself is actually within that circle.
And with that testimony, Judge Mark Surratt said yes, the data collected from Brian Golsby's ankle monitor can be heard by a jury.
Brian Golsby's defense team faced defeat 3 times over today at the Franklin County Courthouse in their effort to save Golsby from facing execution if convicted. Today, a judge considered 2 motions from Golsby's attorneys related to the death penalty. First, they argued the trial should be put on hold while the state legislature considers a bill to abolish capital punishment in Ohio. Prosecutors pointed out that legislation has been proposed before and gone nowhere. The judge agreed, denying that motion. The defense also argued the death penalty should be dropped in this case based on racial disparities in its application. They cited a study that found Ohio is more likely to execute black defendants, especially when the victim is white. Prosecutors said Golsby is a repeat violent offender and a sexually violent predator, and said his criminal history, not his race, is what makes him eligible for the death penalty.
If the state alleged that Brian Golsby was kidnapping, raping, and killing an African-American girl who left the Taco Bell and went home to her home in Linden, would he have faced the death penalty?
Oh, I think he would have.
I think the statistics show otherwise, with all due respect.
His violent background, this violent crime, senseless murder and execution of a young woman under the most vicious and violent circumstances, and would end just by saying that any prosecutor that has available to them the death penalty would select this defendant as eligible for a capital indictment.
The judge sided with the prosecution on both of those motions and on the defense effort to throw out GPS data that links Golsby to Tokes' murder.
The man charged with killing an Ohio State student is now 1 month away from heading to trial.
Brian Golsby is facing multiple charges tonight in the February 2017 kidnapping and murder of Reagan Tokes. And with the death penalty still on the table for the convicted felon, all eyes are on this very high-profile case.
The Franklin County Prosecutor's Office has issued nearly 24 subpoenas for witnesses who will testify during the trial.
I spoke to Ron O'Brien earlier this afternoon, and he said that these 23 witnesses play a key role during this trial.
These would be the witnesses that will explain what happened and are the evidence supporting the charges that are in the indictment.
Franklin County Prosecutor Ron O'Brien says his team has worked on this case for nearly a year and is ready to present their evidence to a jury. 18 individuals, including some of Reagan Tokes' friends, and 5 entities, including Grove City Police and the Franklin County Coroner's Office, will testify in court.
A lot of the information will be from the police, setting the scene, tracing the victim's path the night of the homicide.
O'Brien believes the trial will last 3 to 4 weeks. Attorneys for Golsby had argued that there has been too much pre-trial publicity surrounding the case and that it would be impossible to get a fair trial in Franklin County. The presiding judge overruled the defense's motion to move. O'Brien says despite the publicity, he's hoping the jury selected is fair and impartial.
Despite anything they may have seen, heard, or read, can they still base any decision on what they hear in the courtroom?
The man accused of killing an Ohio State student appeared in court again.
The concern today, courthouse security for the upcoming trial for Brian Golsby.
Brian Golsby answered the judge with a simple yes, sir, when asked a question during a hearing that was largely procedural but dealt with some serious topics.
And instead you're waiving that right and you're allowing me to decide it by myself. Is that your understanding of the document?
Yes, sir.
Brian Golsby doesn't want count 18 of his indictment heard by a jury. He's willing to let the judge decide that. The count alleges Golsby should not have possessed a gun because of his past convictions for robbery and attempted rape. Today, a sheriff's deputy said he would prefer that Golsby wear leg shackles during his upcoming trial and perhaps a stun belt. The judge doesn't want the jury to see Golsby in a jail jumpsuit or handcuffs, but is willing to make concessions for courtroom security. The deputy was asked by Prosecutor Ron O'Brien if anything has happened during Golsby's confinement at the jail since his arrest in February for Reagan's murder.
Since the defendant's been incarcerated in our jail, there's been a number of incidents that have been recorded. If you like.
Well, let's hold on with this.
At that point, Judge Mark Serrett ordered all news cameras in the courtroom to be shut off. All attorneys and the deputy went back into the judge's chambers. When they emerged, all parties agreed that there were no outstanding issues that would affect courtroom security Golsby's upcoming trial.
Today, more than 200 jurors were set to be brought in to fill out questionnaires and begin the first steps in selecting a jury. As in the past, defense attorneys have expressed concerns about how much pretrial publicity this case has gotten. The judge heard arguments this morning about whether to allow news cameras into the courtroom. Prosecutor Ron O'Brien, though, says there has never been a change of venue needed in his 20-plus years as county prosecutor.
I don't have a concern about picking a jury here in Franklin County. I have found in a whole series of cases, not only here but across the state, that jurors are able to set aside whatever they may have seen, heard, or read about the case and decide the case only on the evidence they hear in the courtroom.
The ultimate goal of jury selection is to be able to select an unbiased jury from here in Franklin County, people who are able to follow Ohio law and who could impose the death penalty if Golsby is convicted. This phase of the trial with jury selection is expected to last about 1 week. The rest of the trial is expected to last anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks.
You okay? Yeah, the handcuff. Oh, yeah. You get one? Yeah. All right, we'll get it from the cruiser then. Yep. All right. Just walk them over. Search the place, search them again before you put them in. Yep. Pat you down, search you real quick before you get in there, okay? Try to be as wide as you can. This car. There you go. Oh. No, we're gonna double check for our safety. You're gonna search the lot, all right? Push it up. Got on you real quick. Cool. Thank you. Good to go to back 5'8"?
Yeah.
Okay. Nope.
Also, don't talk about anything if you ask you questions, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Just tell them Nick's going to talk to him, and that's all. That's the only answer to give them.
Yep. Works for me. You'll be able to talk to Detective Deskins here soon enough.
I thought they were supposed to bring me my suit.
Oh. Apparently they didn't. $140.
140.
Being out to 5'8", beginning mileage 108,266.
Copy. As well as Go ahead, sir. Frank Young, 8079, Stringtown, Marley.
Stringtown, Marley.
The air on?
Yeah, we got air on, but it's hard to get through with that divider.
The heat won't come back here either?
I got the heat going, so it's doing the best it can.
as mother was visited.
Yeah.
Again. Boy out of young, not in position to stand. Be really strong. Give it legs.
He comes back, not file.
Boy, Adam Young, Robert Ocean, stand safe.
Thanks. 169 will come back, 11 negative on a block. 2013 Dodge 4-door to Bailey Strathy, 1377 Gateway Lakes.
Copy, trunk the building. It's good, boy.
Yeah. 39. Code 3 for 35. Can I get 66 out here? Code 3 419. 66 now. Thank you.
Got it, 5.8, any mileage, 108,277.
Yep.
Off of you, we'll go inside.
Any houses or anything there?
Get what?
Houses or anything?
What do you mean?
Slippers,
Oh,
socks.
slippers? No, I don't think we have any of those, but I'll look for you.
Pair of socks or something.
It'll be a level floor once we get in here, so. No, regular floor, it's gonna be rocky. Stand over here, Paul. I'm gonna pat you down a third time.